Good afternoon or good morning to everybody there. My name is John Rinaldo, and we have Hassan,
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Sandro, or Sandro.
Sandro, yes.
Yeah. Um, so what we're going to be talking about today is the whole. This project is something that I'm really looking forward to, and I'm excited about it, and it's kind of cool because what we're doing is that it's a special project between Hassan and I. And one of the things that we're doing is we're actually doing some research of our history of our family and so forth. And one of the cool things about it is that we uncovered a history gem that I don't think it's really talked about, right?
Right,
I've never seen it before, and I'm a history buff of World War II mostly, and
exactly.
I've
It's
never.
it's a strange thing because when we see history, read the history of the time. Yes, the Allies liberated Italy, but they stopped at the northern part, and
Yeah,
there was the whole industrial base of Italy was still under German and fascist occupation. But we never talk about it. We talk about the liberation of Napoli, the liberation of Rome, the liberation of Sicily, but nobody talks the fact that Milan, Turin, the Veneto, all those places were still under German and fascist occupation until the end of the war.
right. And I think they stopped at Rome. That's where they
Yeah,
stopped, and then they shifted their attention to the
the
coastal
Normandy campaign.
line, yeah, the Normandy campaign and things like that, and they were preparing for that. And I think, but then during that period of time when the halt was, Italy was kind of going through a transition themselves.
Hmm.
Mussolini got kind of like ousted. The king came back. I don't know if everybody knew this, but Italy had a king, and I think he's
Hmm.
still a king. There's a kingdom in Santo Maria.
Marino,
Marina, yeah,
San Marino.
yeah, and that's a country within itself.
Hmm.
But
You can walk through it, but yeah, it's a
yeah,
country.
you can walk through it, but it's a kingdom. Yeah, it's its own kingdom.
Right.
But the cool thing about it is that they stopped there, and then he got exiled, and then then one of the generals became a president. I think that's what it was,
Hmm.
and then they kind of like went through that whole process. I think for like 6 or 7 months trying to get the thing, but people don't realize when the Italian army kind of like ceased to exist. It wasn't ceased and they went home. They were executed.
Yeah.
A majority of them got executed.
Right.
Thousands, hundreds and thousands of them got
And
executed.
a part of them were stationed in the Balkans
Yep.
and in Greece, and they were cut off from the mainland. I'm I'm going to jump over myself, but I'm reading this book right now, A House in the Mountains: The Women Who Liberated Italy from Fascism, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting for our research. I highly recommend it. It's by
Okay.
Carolyn Moorhead. Uh, I'll just do a little for everybody to see.
So explain the story behind that. What's this premise of it? So what's the
It's a historiography. It's not a fiction. It's a historiography,
okay?
and it talks about the Italian resistance at that time that we're talking about, but more in the Western Alps around Turin,
Okay.
and how it started because the people of Turin were part and parcel of the industrial base of Italy, northern Italy, well, all of Italy, but it was in northern Italy, and they suffered a lot because, as you say, yes, the rest of Italy was liberated. They had a new prime minister who was a general, etc., who tried to redo the republic. But in the north, the fascists reorganized
Yes.
and they became really powerful because that was the new fascist state.
Yes.
And these women, mostly very educated women from Turin and Milan, they're the ones who actually started the resistance movement. They were used, as they call it, stafette, to be
Mm.
able to bring messages because most soldiers, or even fascist soldiers, would not stop young ladies
Yeah.
on bicycles. So they were used as messengers, and the men went up in the mountains. And it's a very fascinating story. It's very dense because it's all family and friendship relationships. So you have to
Yeah.
try to remember who is who in that tree of relationships. But it's interesting. It doesn't really talk about the partisan movement in the Veneto. It's more about Western Italy around the Alps, next to Switzerland and all that. But you do see that there are a lot of resistance groups. that are all banded together. The communists, the Action Group, the one was called the Action Group, the other one was the Communists, the Garibaldi Brigade. There were many, many resistance groups that were all working together at that point.
Right. So one of the things I was researching, which I fascinated me, was that even though there was fascism, it wasn't really popular in northern Italy at all. It was considered not his president or his leader or whatever it was, Mussolini. And so the Green Berets came about as the resistance, and where the Veneto, like, that's what I understand growing up, was that was happening there. And then what also was going on was that communism was popular in northern Italy, which shocks the heck out of me because they're very industrialist, very entrepreneurial, because that's where Ferrari came from, Lamborghini, all the major industrial, innovative, that's where it came from. And just for context of purposes, the South is more of a farmland. That's the agricultural, and that's where you get your olives, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The northern part of Italy is mostly livestock, grains, and things like that. Maybe, I think, rice up there. I can't remember.
Rice, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, not to interrupt you, John, but also a heavy industry. And that's where the labor movement came, and that's where the communist faction came in, because it worked with the labor unions of Fiat and all those big companies that were still operating in northern Italy.
Yeah, so that was a shock to me, based on that geography and knowing how. I mean, I can understand unionization and things like that, but I didn't think it'd be that, like, throughout the whole, a good majority of it. Yeah.
If I may interject a personal thought, my grandmother was the only communist female in her village. And at her funeral, the mayor was there, who was a communist at the time, and he said, "We lost our only female communist in our region."
And so, for context purposes, what was your family's name in Italy?
Franzoia.
Franzoia. Okay.
My grandfather's name is, the family's name is Franzoia. My grandmother's family name is Vanzo.
So that's sort of like the overview of Italy and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's really start going into the nuts of what we discovered. And I think the kind of cool thing, and then there's another person involved. His name is Rinaldo, Rinaldo. And just to kind of put everything in perspective, this is turning into a multicultural, a multilateral, international, I don't know how you would call it, but there's a lot of moving pieces that, if it comes to all fruition, and I say that with all due respect because things could fall apart. Being in business, you just know partners kind of walk away, writers walk, just the way it goes.
Right.
But I'm hoping that this stays the way it is, because really the idea of the whole, as we were discussing, and if I'm wrong, please let me know. We want to create these podcasts as a documentary,
right?
So that we can kind of turn it around and create videos and use snippets of it, and then create like a 2-hour, 1 hour documentary down the road somewhere.
Yeah.
But also use it as a catalog of our research, our writing, the interviews that we have with people, if we can get interviews. And use this as a platform, not just for English, but for also Italian.
Right.
Because that's our target out there as well.
And if you don't mind, we could also do it in French, because maybe you've read some of my epilogue about the Italian immigrants working in Belgium.
Okay.
A lot of their descendants have stayed in Belgium, and now they're part of civil society in Belgium. And yes, they speak French, because it's Wallonia, southern Wallonia, where they speak French and not Flemish. So.
Yeah, we could do it in French too. I mean, that's cool, because the benefit of AI that I'm discovering is that you can translate everything into a different language.
Right.
And I tested it with my uncle, who is, predominantly Italian, and he's like, "Wow, your Italian's really good."
I'm sorry, John, are you fluent in Italian?
So, no, not like I used to be.
Okay.
I butcher it. But I mean, I don't practice it enough.
Yeah, that's a problem. And I have this horrible French accent that Italians always laugh at, because I roll my R's in Italian. I am francophone
Yeah.
education. But yeah.
So how we discovered each other, which is an interesting conversation to start with. So I guess I'll go start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
As you commented something on my post, and I took that as like as a diss of some sort.
Yeah.
Because online you just don't know who you're talking
Yeah.
to.
Pose law. Yeah, absolutely. Pose
And
law.
we kind of like bantered back and forth, and we were kind of like peacocks going at each other.
Well, I found it interesting because you posted a picture of the Dolomites where I remember having seen that where that same scene, that almost
Yeah.
exact same picture that you posted as something I remember when I grew up in Italy with my grandmother.
Yeah.
And then I said, "Man, are we like long lost cousins or something?" And
that's the conversation that we took that offline and
right?
actually had a proper conversation. And but the humor started as I felt like we were being peacocks and tried,
Yeah,
kind of like challenging each other. And then you dove into your story, and then we kind of like figured out we're from the same region,
it's
which
incredible.
was, but we're also Canadians. I'm
Right.
from Vancouver, and you're in Montreal. Now
Yeah.
you weren't born in Canada, were you? Or you
No,
were
no, I was
born?
born in Brussels in Belgium.
Yeah. See, okay, so there you go. But the cool thing is, in Canada, there's also a distinct between the English versus the French. So there's
Right.
always that little, that
The
little
two
back,
solitudes we call it. Yeah.
yeah, the back and forth of the bickerings of the two language. But this is where the multiculturalism comes in, because it's not just one nation,
No, it's not.
or one group of people. It's a mix of people in that area that actually disbanded around the world to get away from the issues of World War II, because nothing was really there. So it taken us over. So for us to come full circle, representing our families of yesterdays, is kind of unique and different. And so as we were going through this and kind of a conversation, we realized that you brought up a story, and I want you to tell your story before I go into other things. But you mentioned something about your grandmother and your grandfather. So we'll go with that first.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother and my grandfather, they never really talked about what they went through the war. It's all just little bits and pieces. And unfortunately, I'm going through something difficult with my mother right now. She's suffering from Alzheimer's. So the stories are coming out like drip and drab. And I don't want to push her because I can feel sometimes that it's emotionally difficult. But she did talk to me about like why her mother wasn't there right after the war. My grandfather had to walk from somewhere in East Germany and actually found the stalag where he was incarcerated, or most of Italian partisans were incarcerated, which was east of Berlin. So he walked from east of Berlin all the way to the Veneto. My grandmother wasn't there. She appeared like maybe 18 months after the war. There's a long mystery of what happened to her. She never talked about it. My mother doesn't want to talk about it, and when she's trying to remember, it brings her too much anxiety. So I stopped asking. But there is a story that she told me that she overheard her parents talk, and that my grandmother suffered a lot in the hands of one partisan group, and there was even some assault in sexual nature in that, and she was saved by another partisan group and a priest also, who went, and because my grandmother spoke German, northern Italy. She used to, when she was a child, she used to spend the summers working in farm fields in Austria, where she learned German, and that's how she was able to beg for my grandfather's life when he got caught by the Germans,
Yeah.
crossing families of Jews into Switzerland. And the commander said, "I can't do anything except send him to a camp." And of course, they didn't know what a camp entailed in those days. So she said, it's best that he be sent to a camp. I don't know about my grandfather. Maybe he would have preferred a quick end than to have spent all those years the way he spent them. But be that as may, that's what happens. So all these stories, since I was a child, these stories were present for me. I did go to visit Italy, and my grandparents said there's always this like pall of something that we don't really know about, but at the same time, they're all considered heroes in my area. All the partisans. I remember going to my grandparents' home's attic and finding my grandfather's Alpini hat, like you had one. I saw you had one of the clothes with it, and his medals were there. And I remember playing with his toy soldiers and stuff like that, and wearing his hat when I was a child. So there's all this mix of stories, but I'm trying to delve, and there's not many people left over there that remember what happened. So I'm working on half formed memories, half said things that are not really said, but I can start to break out what might have happened.
Right. And that is actually, I want to bring a point in the research that, okay, so when we first launched this, we said, oh, let's go talk to our relatives and just kind of go out there and see what happens, right? So I reached out to my cousins and uncles and all that and people in the area there, and I got resistance because a lot of people don't remember, don't want to remember, don't have the conversations. There's
and there's also maybe a little uncomfortable because maybe some of the families are fascists
or whatever. But when I started doing more, so it's funny how your closest family members would not share stories to you to kind of like write about and things like it. I think it's a fear of it.
Fear, and also the nascent conservatism of mountain people and village people.
Yeah,
don't want to spread the bad things that happen, and they keep it to themselves.
But
I know this is a stereotype.
I don't even think this is a bad thing. I think this is I mean, what I'm uncovering, this is equivalent to Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is. And from what I understand, and this is from just researching on my own, and you're researching on your own, and we're kind of sharing back and forth. And Randy's sharing some stuff too here and there. What we're understanding is families, there was networks of families that was working with the church, the Catholic Church, the priests were all involved. And they were kind of like smuggling the Jews from one house to another or hiding them. But the problem with all that, and I can give you a story where like people would so under Italy it became Nazi occupation. Like there was no fascism. Like they were basically a secondary defense, more or less.
Right.
And Mussolini comes back into power, and so occupation, it's suppressed, it's oppression, whatever you want to use the words. It's there. And so my grandfather and grandparents were kind of like family members, because we're from a town called San Zenone in Veneto. And in San Zenone, you only have Rinaldo's, Battistas, Boza, Bondion. You have some really big, powerful names that eventually that community moved to Vancouver.
Okay.
And they became self-made millionaires, things like that. They really, through the construction world. So back to the story of my grandfather, what was happening was the soldiers were occupying, and they would force themselves, the Nazis would force themselves in the houses to have dinner. Right. And you would have to feed them. Right. But Germans only spoke Germans, and the Italians only spoke Italians. And so the Italians had to start learning. Now, in that region, it's really special because they do speak a little French, a little Spanish, and a little bit of German and Italian, Northern Italian, more Latin, I think, is what
Germanic Italian, yeah, depends.
Up in that region there. And just based on my father, because the way he spoke different languages was pretty easy for him. So in this story, my grandfather was insulted, or he insulted my grandmother. I'm not really sure where that sits, but he decked the officer out.
He decked out what?
He beat the officer out.
Wow.
Like he beat him up.
Wow.
And something happened to the officer. I don't know if he beat him up or someone else beat him up, but I got to go back to the storyline again, but just stay with that. And then he was taken away to prison. And so he was in prison for doing this. And then my grandmother and a priest went to the prison to get him out.
Okay.
And somehow or another got him out. So that was a reoccurrence, because your grandmother did something very similar with your grandfather. there's very similar stories throughout the whole region.
Right.
That's very similar, and that's something that is pretty cool. I mean, well, for historians and writers, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not cool to
When
hear
it
it,
happened.
when it happened. I'm not saying I don't think that's cool. I think it's cool that this is unraveling itself the way it is.
Yeah. What
So,
I find also interesting, like for example, in this book I'm reading, they're talking about a 18-year-old resistance fighter who, with his band, attacked a German airfield. It's one sentence long in the book. There's no details about it. But imagine they made a whole series with the SAS rogue heroes about them attacking airfields in the desert, and we
yeah,
have this one line of a band of partisans attacking a German airfield around Turin, and that's all. It gets is one sentence in this book. Like, I would like to know more. How did they get to attack a whole German airfield and get away with it and survive? But there's no like there's so many stories that are possible,
yeah.
and I think one interesting part of it, and I think it's going to make some people uncomfortable. It might even make some Italians uncomfortable. Is how the Italians themselves were harsh to their own fellow Italians, the ones who were fascists, towards especially in that place, that geographical area that we're talking about, northern Italy, when they retook power because they were under German protection, and they said this is going to be the new Italy, and we're going to go after all the traitors who betrayed the Republic and all that. There is a storyline that we can make with Italians who are Italian but were actually fascist and were even more cruel than the German occupiers, who actually
Oh yeah.
just wanted the grains and the food and the industrial capacity of northern Italy. They didn't, the Germans
They didn't care.
at
No,
that
they
point,
didn't
the
care for
Germans were
themselves.
not, in any way, shape, or form wanting to change the fabric of Italian society. They just
Right.
wanted their food and their industrial output. So they gave basically the run of the place to the fascists, who were like, okay, we got beaten in the south, and now we're stuck in this enclave, and we're going to make them more powerful. So I think that could be also a very interesting dynamic, and it must have destroyed some families.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's probably. I mean, yeah. In history, families do split up into two different sides of the world depending
Hmm.
on their political beliefs, especially in today's climate. It happens all the time now.
Right.
Um, but back then, it did happen because you had two opinions, and that's really where it starts, where two people polarize each other. So the Spanish Civil War in the
30,
1934, I think, around
yeah,
there.
around there.
That was actually, when you look at it historically, that was actually a battle, a war of ideology,
Right.
fascism versus communism, and which one would have a better outcome. And that's really what it was.
Hmm.
Um, but in Italy, you did have a little bit of those pockets where they resist. Well, Mussolini was a prime example of his own henchmen coming after him and hanging him and just, shaming him for what he did to the country. Um, but so, the research that we're doing on this topic, it's not been easy.
No,
Let's no. We thought there'd be tons of materials out there. There's not tons of materials out there.
I think there's tons of material, but we don't have access to it right now. There are at least two associations in the Veneto who do have a pretty large archive.
Yeah.
I'm going to start writing to them to see if I can get any material, if they have
Okay.
anything.
Yeah. So Randy's also a good resources. Apparently, he goes there every year, so that's
Mhm.
that's good. The thing that I was, um, the thing that we were, one of the things that we're like, I had people who came, like I had on Facebook, I posted on Facebook, and all of a sudden people were kind of like reaching out, asking me. That's how I got Randy. I got another person named Nicholas or something like that, and he gave me. And I said, I want the pictures of the war, the war plaques, which would show a lot of the names.
Right?
And in World War II, there wasn't much there.
No, there wasn't.
And you would think there was a lot, and there was only maybe two Ronaldos on there, and I thought there was a list because our region's full of Ronaldos. I mean, that's just one of the areas there, and you'd
Mhm.
think there'd be a plethora of those Ronaldos there, and there isn't. Even other names, dominant names, or not. You had a few here and a few there. and for the amount of people that have died, you'd think there'd be more casualties.
Hmm.
So when we're talking about research, that means we have to dive in the Jewish networks. We have to dive into local municipalities if they're willing to give it to us.
The dioceses, the churches,
The churches.
their archives.
So this project is not just us writing on Substack.
Oh, it's not.
It's it's really what we're trying to do is in this process to show you what really takes to write a book, to document something, to do the legwork. And this project will be, I think, over a year's long worth of research.
At least, yeah.
At
I
least,
think we should really honor the history of the. We
right?
could write just a general fiction and make it a romantic story about heroes and bad guys and good guys.
Yeah,
I think it really to really honor these people. I think we should really delve into the history and
right.
how it affected the society and the fabric of society, and it goes all the way down to immigration. Like you saw in my
Right.
prologue, the immigration wasn't easy for a lot of Italians after the war. There was no
No.
work. A lot of them went. I'm amazed that the people of Treviso chose Vancouver because a lot of them chose Southern America, Argentina, and all that. But most of the Northern Italians went not in North America but in South America, and most of the Southern Italians went to North America to
Well,
immigrate.
I found Ronaldo's in 6 different continents.
Wow.
And I have them on my Facebook. And that's what I've been doing over the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Hmm.
It's been trying to find Ronaldos that are associated. So they're in Austria,
Yeah.
they're in Switzerland,
Hmm.
they are in England, they are in they're in, I think, in Brazil,
Hmm.
they're in or Argentina,
Hmm.
they're also in Australia, Filipino, you name it. They're in North America, all over the place, but they're not associated with me. They're not. We're not clans. But one of the things is that one of my great grandfathers had 21 children, or 24 children. I can't remember what it was,
Yeah.
between 2 women, 2 sisters.
Yeah.
One passed, and then he had another one. So there was that big of a family. So, I mean, I'm still fighting that our family tree, and I was hoping that this will actually break open a lot of that story and help us get there faster. But you're right, we can't. I mean, we could do with what we have. We can create a great, beautiful nonfiction novel that is, you know,
Tales of
loose.
Daring Do and
Yeah, loose on history, loose, very rumor and all that.
Frost
But
Lovers, the whole thing. Yeah.
yeah, but to really to honor to what was happening, because the premise of this project is heroes that were forgotten in the shadows, put in the hole, that somehow or another, out of all odds, picked themselves up, showed some resistance in that thing, and not only that, started to oppose the powers that were thrown on top of them,
And
and
from
then trying to save people along the process.
and,
This,
and from what I've read from my little research, excuse me to
yeah,
interrupt, but with very little help from the Allies.
oh yeah, little,
The
no
SOE,
help at all.
the Special Operation Executive, which is British intelligence, a few drops of weapons into northern Italy. The Americans didn't see the point.
No,
Basically, that's what in general said. Don't see the point.
because it was heavy. But here's a point I want to make: it was heavily occupied by the Germans.
Hmm.
It was reinforced by another million, somewhat, in that region. You had Austria, you had all that front line. I forgot the name of that line.
It's either a Hitler line or it's either called a Hitler line. I'll find it. I
No,
think
but
it was called a
it's
Hitler line.
a special line
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they called specifically
The
for
Gustav
that.
line or the Hitler line. I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Allies didn't want. The reason why they attacked the southern part, it wasn't heavily defended, and
It
they
was
knew
it was a straight road to Rome. Also, they
right,
didn't.
and they wanted the Italian pasta from Rome. I guess I don't know.
Well,
Um,
if they got Rome, they figured they got Italy, and that they
yeah,
wouldn't. Also,
that's a conquer of Roman Empire.
and there's also another interesting thing that I found with this research is it was not only a pipeline to save the Jewish families, it was a pipeline to save Allied airmen and soldiers.
Oh,
because
I didn't know that.
the bombing raids went into Germany flew over Italy. And when they got shot down, they got hit down and landed in northern Italy. And according to this book, there was a pipeline to save American and British airmen, and they would bring them in, hide them like they hid families of Jews,
Right.
and it was a pipeline to bring Allied airmen and soldiers who escaped some of these stalags after the liberation, and then they pushed them into Switzerland. So that's another parallel track that we can also work on. I guess it would be more on the western side than on the eastern side,
Yeah, yeah.
like
Yeah.
our side, but more on the western around Turin and Milan, because that's where the planes would fly over.
So just to give context to the audience, Italy is kind of like in the northern Italy. It's the Alps,
Right.
and it's regionalized based on the flatlands of where the Alps kind of like the
Into the
foot.
Po Valley, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the middle comes down. The Alps come down more closer to Milan,
Right.
and that kind of gives you that separation between the west and east.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about is majority on is the eastern part underneath Austria, right next to well, it used to be named Yugoslavia.
Right. Right.
Now is Bosnia or Croatia.
Right.
So in that box right there, in between Milan and Venice, right up in that region there, that's the region we're kind of like talking about. And if we want to get really more specific, it's there's a mountain called Bassona de Grappa,
Yeah.
which is where the region our families come from, our roots. In that region right there is where what we're talking about. And to smuggle the Jewish, they went through the Alps, over the mountains, crossing many peaks, or through the tunnels they created,
The passes, yeah.
the passage into Switzerland. Somehow or another, they thought Switzerland was the safe haven there. Don't know if that was true or not. I don't know what happened after that.
It was iffy. They said they were from what I'm reading. Swiss say they were neutral, but it would help some groups more than others. Let's say they had no problems accepting American and British flyers, but sometimes with the Jewish families, it was a little bit more difficult. And another thing we could also look into.
Yeah. So that's sort of the start, and then the villages kind of like, and there's multiple villages, probably like 20 communities or so in that region. And somehow they found a way to create the network. And I don't know how they do that because most of the land's flat underneath the foothills. So creating tunnels, I don't see that being a possibility. So it was hidden in carts or horses. I'm not sure how they did it. Midnight smuggling, but there was curfews there. I'm sure it was at that time. So they were trying to smuggle and the community got there, moved on. The Jewish community, I think we're talking about maybe 50 to 60 families.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah.
So you take that an average of maybe 3 or 4 children per family.
Right.
Times that by, let's say, 60, maybe 500 people approximately that they were trying to save.
Right.
Give or take. And I'm just using high numbers just for the sake of throwing numbers out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure through our research now. So with that said, that's sort of the story and we believe this story resonates not just then, but also today.
I think so.
Because in your experience, and I don't think people knew this, you're a journalist.
Yes.
And you're a war journalist in Afghanistan.
I wouldn't call myself a war journalist, but I worked in Afghanistan with NATO. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I did cover bad places when I was a journalist. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you were more combat.
Yeah, I saw. I
wouldn't say you were a soldier, but you're definitely a combat.
I went on patrol with many nations, including the Canadians and all that.
Yeah. But in that situation, you had a lot of examples there too, where people were trying to save people, right?
Right, I did. Yes.
Yeah. So this is, I'm sure this is very, very familiar to you in the present day. So going back, you could probably see those. Does that help you kind of like when you're researching this? does that kind of help you like identify, oh, I see the pattern now,
I
or
see.
is that something?
I know it helps me because I understand the idea of like rabbit runs, for example.
Yeah,
There's also the American examples of the Freedom Railway that went all the way up to Canada.
yeah, yeah,
People
yeah,
do organize, so I know how people, and the idea of resistance also, which is not something that in our modern times we actually think about.
yeah,
I understand how people can get together, and maybe we'll. I hope we're not going to see it in the United States of America, but you can see what's happening in Minneapolis. Communities get together.
mhm,
I think it's a perfect example of what we're talking about. What's happening in Minneapolis is there's no violence really. Communities are getting together. They're helping each other. So when communities are under stress, some groups inside the community tend to help each other and
right,
create networks, and these networks can enlarge for other things, like what we're seeing. They're helping people coming out of detention centers with coats and food, and they're helping. People are giving free food to people who are outside observing and stuff like that. Groups, communities tend to organize each other when they're under a certain stress and under a certain pressure, and that's an interesting dynamic we can explore too.
yeah, definitely.
Like how, like I personally, I really think there's something because how did we meet? We're two complete strangers who are on a social media platform, and we made one comment, and it blossomed into something else. I mean,
Yes,
you can call it serendipity, you can call it whatever you want. It's kind of strange, and it's kind of like on point. That how did we meet? And
right,
that our families are so close to each other. And we're half an hour. I checked on Google Maps. Your
yeah,
village is 30 minutes by car from my village. Now, how
right.
does that? How did I mean? The odds of that are astronomical.
And I had to drive through. So I've been to Montagapa. I've been up to the mountains there. I've done
Hmm.
all that stuff, and I even hiked. So I had to travel through your town multiple times to get there.
Right. So it's like
So
we're
yeah,
not so
and you had to go through my town to go south.
south. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean you
my,
could go the
my
other way,
town,
but
my town is in Belluno. Your town is in Treviso.
yeah,
They're neighboring the
yeah,
neighboring regions of the same region province.
right,
So yeah, it's the direct to go down into the southern part of or the central part of Italy.
right,
So these communities must have known each other between,
right.
and they must have
They had to.
started. Yeah,
And I think the connection is the churches. That's my belief. That's my gut telling me that's how it all started. The other piece of this puzzle, I want to add Randy Rinaldo. So you talked about posting something on social media, and that's what we did. We started posting on social media. I posted on social media on Facebook and a couple other places where I'm heavily tied into the Italian community. And Randy reached out. Now, Randy and I live in the same city, we were living in the same city. Now I don't live there anymore. That's Vancouver. And he said, "How come we haven't ever crossed paths?" Because our last names are Ronaldo, and I'm like, "I don't know. Do you know this person?" We kept going down this path of like, "Who do you know?" And I don't know if you're an archaeologist. Is it archaeologist or I can't remember who the anthropologist. So I took a lot of classes of anthropology because one of the things I wanted to do is learn about culture and languages and things like that.
okay. Can I
And
stop you a second?
yeah,
I have a degree in anthropology and East Asian
okay.
studies.
So I don't have a degree. I took classics of history,
Yeah,
but one of the things I wanted to learn was the cultures.
yeah,
And I bring this story up because when Randy and I were doing this, it kind of popped up that like in Africa, what would happen is if two people would meet, they're kind of like not too far. I can't remember what's. I think Africa in general. If two people from two different sides of the tribe, what they would do is they would to identify themselves. They would start calling out relatives and names to
yeah,
find the association of who they knew because they're still in quite of a small community, and it's that eventually once they hit a name they go yes that person, and they would start describing that person, and that's how they knew that it was okay to trust that person, and it became more of a trust because they had somebody associated with that. So when Randy and I were doing that, I was thinking, are we trying to trust each other? Because I was thinking about that tradition back in Africa. So as we were going through this, I was like, oh, Boza, okay, that type of book. Like we started like going down that path, and I said, well, my dad worked for Baudouin, and he's like, oh, Baudouin, and then we started talking about it, and he goes, yeah, I go back to Italy all the time, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And then he reveals something that I know that exists. It's the Italian Cultural Center. He goes, well, do you know the Italian Culture Center? I says, my dad built that. So yeah, I know that. Baudouin built it. I know. We were there multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, well, do you know I'm the president of that association?
Okay.
I go, no. Because I said, well, I don't live there anymore, so I don't really associate with
Right.
it as much as I used to. And then he comes up, he goes, I would love to help you guys with this. This is something that I think the Italian culture can help you. And by the way, I know some Jewish people that could probably help with that side of the world. And I can probably help with the storylines. And that's how that started.
Okay.
And we started to develop, we went on a WhatsApp, and we started to communicate there. And he brought some stories already forward, which is kind of cool. Now, the reason why it's kind of stopped a little bit is because I had a little bit of a medical issue, so I
Yeah, I
stopped.
heard that. I'm sorry to hear that, John.
That's okay, but we were eager to restart this, and I'm eager to do this now. So that's sort of where we came today, and we read a few articles that we post. Now, when for just for the audience, we're gonna write about stuff and post them on Substack. Just kind of give you guys an idea, but we're going to try to do more of these videos, more of these documentaries, because this is how we're trying to. These conversations is how we can catalog these dialogues, and we want to bring in the writers, the new writers, or people that are trying to figure out how to research and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the idea that I was having was maybe this becomes more of an education of our conversations, our struggles, to show you that if you truly want to write a history book, or if you truly want to dive into something, this is hopefully this path shows you that journey, and shows you the struggles that we're going through as writers that we are, and how you collaborate with other people, how you work with other people, how you find other people to help you out. And maybe it becomes something not just an individual, but maybe a group effort.
A multimedia effort to how to create, to work on creation of
right.
historical fiction.
Right. And we're working with, and on the other sides, there's other TV producers that we're talking to. There's production people that we're talking to. So there's other people that we're talking to. We haven't put them in the fold yet.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get this first podcast up and running. So we had this first baseline, and then we're going to start introducing. You might have like 4 or 5 people on this site talking about it, and that's what we want. We want to have this to be shared, show you the journey, show how it feels to write something, and maybe it might inspire you. So that's where we're at with that.
Yeah.
So what's your next? What do you think our next? I mean, what's our next step here?
I see it in 2 parts. There's a research part.
Yeah.
Now the holidays are over. People are back. Everything, especially in Europe. I am going to start sending emails to those foundations that I told you are in the Veneto.
Yeah.
Right in the Veneto, there's a whole archive of historiography about the resistance and the partisans. They're dedicated just to that. So I'm going to start, like you said, use AI to work on my really bad Italian and ask them and give them a short synopsis of what we're working on. I have a lot of friends here in Montreal, or a lot in the art scene, and I used to work for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, so I know a lot of people in the art scene. I'm going to start making a little bit of, like you, little contacts to see if anybody would be interested.
Yeah.
I think eventually either both of us or one of us or any combination thereof will have to go over there.
Yeah.
Physically go over there to look at, not only to look at, paper and archives, but to feel.
But also interview people that we might know that are willing to talk.
And not only that, but also to feel like you studied, like you said, you studied anthropology, just to feel how the people live in there, to feel a
Yeah,
sense of culture. Because those people, yes, they've changed because it's been almost 100 years, but there's still a certain kind of pattern of living that
yeah,
I think, will help add another layer to what we're writing.
yeah. No, you're right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't travel for a while because of the condition I'm in.
And I can't travel for a while because of my economic situation. I mean,
So, but we're doing these podcasts for number one, it's either to meet together
mhm.
people from across the pond and things like that, but also more importantly is to hopefully uh, send the message out there, and then maybe somebody knows somebody, and they're like, you know what, we're talking to these people. I came across this podcast called The Whole, and they're trying to do this, and maybe an Italian descent or something like that because I know about that situation. Let me reach out. So I mean, if people do that, we are going to give credit to people and things like that. And it's not just two people trying to do this; it's a community that we're
The
trying to.
community, yeah,
It's
yeah.
a community effort, and it's not just Substack. It's across spectrums, and hopefully it's all cross media, all types, but also multi all. We're talking about Italy, Canada. We're talking about Belgium. We're talking about Italy. We're talking about
Switzerland,
Switzerland.
Austria.
Yeah. So that's what we're really, reaching out. Now, are we going to be 100%? Once say we spend a year doing this, we're not going to be 100% accurate in a lot of things. We're going to
No,
have some stuff missed, but the gist of it is to make sure we have the baseline taken care of, which I think we have
yeah,
to a certain degree. I mean, we do have a premise. And don't get me wrong, people. We've done we've created we created what do you call it? Those one pagers, a summary,
yeah.
just a outline.
Elevator pitch.
An elevator pitch, outline. We had to create some. We had to create. So that's the baseline. We had to create our contacts, which it's all fresh, all new.
Hmm.
We don't know anybody, so we're starting this from like
Right.
ground zero, breaking. And it just started with the idea: is there a story here? Because I like it, you like it, we have an interest. So um,
I can, in my mind, I have this kind of narrative framework where I see it.
yeah,
And if I may, I'm going to try
yeah,
to
sure,
explain to you. I see a storyline what begins in your region of Treviso, your family, what's going on, a little historical background of what's going on, the narrative tension of people not wanting to live like this, a priest with a heart that helps Jewish families, the organization of the pipeline that goes up north, introduction of people like in my family who actually bring these people up and through the mountain passes, their difficulties, and the consequences of being, excuse me, and the consequences of being, of that. Can I pause just for a moment?
yeah, sure. And I'll carry on.
Thank you.
So this is part of the live podcast, and it's okay. So a lot of you guys on here, I appreciate you jumping on. One of the things that we are trying to do is that, as I said, they were trying to catalog this. The storyline that we're trying to create is still not 100%, but as Hassan said, it could start where my family started, kind of going through there and going through the mountain region, because that's the natural path of going from San Zenona into the regions, into that path, because you have to go back and forth on this. It used to be a mule train going, or a mule, whatever it was back in the day, horse and buggies, and
It's the cable cars.
oh, there you go, cable cars. I forgot about that. But that's where it all started, and that's where the natural progression becomes. Because you got to remember, if you go south of where we're at, where that mirage line was of the Germans, was the heavy industrial parks of Fiat, Lamborghini,
Ferrari. No, Ferrari
Ferrari.
wasn't created then. But yeah,
No, Ferrari was there.
Yeah,
Ferrari's over. Yeah, Ferrari started as a well, they all started as farm.
yeah. Farm Lamborghini was a farm of they make
Yeah.
characters. Yeah,
So in that's where that. So if you go south and you try to pass that line, you will be confronted with, from what I read, confronted with heavy military presence of the Nazi Germans because they were trying to mobilize more tanks, weapons, things like that to help with the
it was the
war.
breadbasket of Germany at that point because Germany was being bombed night and day, night at night by the Germans and during the day by the Americans.
You know what? That's the other part of that mystery of that whole thing. Northern Italy never got really bombed.
Northern Italy, no, not really, because they had to keep the industrial. They didn't want to completely destroy the country. I
You
think
mean the Allies and Germans didn't want to destroy it, or you think it was just forgotten?
it was just either forgotten or said we can't. I mean, they did liberate parts of Italy, right?
Yeah.
So they knew that in the future that Italy would need an industrial basin, right? So they might have said, let's not destroy the Fiat works and things like that, but just try to hit the military places instead. And at least when after the war is over, they'll still have an industrial base. I'm still doing the research to find out why the Allies didn't really bomb that. And if I may, just a little parentheses, there were a lot of people in that region who fought during the First World War. Alpini,
Yeah.
in the Alto
Yeah.
Adige. So they knew those passes. They knew those either by their friends or families. They knew
Well,
those passages through the mountains like really well because they fought there. The most bloody battles wasn't really in the Somme or in Verdun. It was up in the frozen mountains of the Alps.
so the story is, so my grandfather told me the story. He goes, as a child, he remembers that during World War One, he said we lost a lot of family members then. And when I look at the thing, we're maybe like 5 or 6 Rinaldos that passed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I don't know if that's a lot or whatever. But the story was so our farm, our estate, we want to call it. There's several Rinaldos that live around. There's a compound almost, but that's typical in Italy. Like you build houses right next to each other because brothers and sons and daughters or whatever.
Yeah.
But and this is the historical part of my family. The back of the house, where we grew crops and things like that, was the cantina of the American front line. That's where they stationed. They camped right there. But when the war was happening, and this is right on top of the Alps, they were fighting back and forth, the Italians and Austria and Hungary. It was Austria and Hungary versus Italy. And they were fighting back and forth. The Americans would support them from the rear, but providing stuff like that. And this is the First World War. This is not Second World War. This is First World War. But the story goes, for 7 nights and 7 days, that mountain stayed lit, night and dark. And rain would pound the region, but you could still see the
flashes of artillery.
You could hear the artilleries, you could hear the bombings, and some of the bombs and some of the things would land on that foothills of that region. And I remember walking into the farmhouse, and there was shells everywhere, and they were basically left in the area of where the Rinaldos lived. So, and an interesting point, just as a note for history, Hemingway actually fought in the First World War. Actually, he was an ambulance driver.
He was an ambulance driver, yeah.
And this is where my journey was when it started. I read Hemingway, Far and Away was the book, where he talked about his time going up the mountains of Bassano da Grappa, and he stayed Bassano da Grappa, not the mountain, but there's a town right next to San Zenone, and he would go there and he would rest and then go back and he'd go up and down, and he hung out with another guy named Rinaldi with an
Wow.
I don't know. And I was trying to see if there was any correlation. I read the book like 4 times and I can't find any correlation, but he does talk about driving up and down the mountains, passing all the little villages. Now, I don't think he names every single villages, but enough that I remember. But that's how that all started, and that was my journey of following. Well, where did Hemingway lived? Like, so I've been to Paris, I've been to Spain, I've been to Cape May, New Jersey. I've been to, like, I started going places where he was, and that's been sort of like my bucket list is follow everywhere he lived.
Okay.
And so, but also that was really my start to figure out my family roots in that northern part, and that was the cool part. But First World War, that was, there was really no sides then. The Second World War was a very different type of behavior from all of them because not all of them believed in Mussolini. Like I said, I know my dad wore the green hat growing up. Like he was a like the green hat, like the what do you call it, the patella, like
Yeah.
the alpine hat,
Yeah, the
and
Alpini hat.
yeah, peanut hat, and that was a sign of resistance.
Right, the Alpini, because they're the ones who really fought really hard in the Alto Adige during the First World War.
Right.
Yeah, they had. By the way, you can still visit the battlefield if you're a good hiker. Yeah, it's quite the hike, and you're on a cliff face. You can't believe that people actually fought battles there. You're on a cliff face with holding onto a chain, clipped onto a line, and going up on a chain. And I mean, you're looking at these, and you can actually visit observation posts from the Italians on the Italian side, and you can also on the Austrian side if you cross over. It,
Right.
it's incredible that how human beings can adapt to any kind of situation, and the hardships that they can go through. Because imagine pulling up artillery pieces up those things, and they didn't have
Well,
cars.
they were carrying on their backs.
Yeah, and they didn't have like trucks and like we have today.
No.
They did either on mules or by human power and pulling these things in ice. We're not
Yeah.
talking an idyllic summer day. This was the middle of alpine winter in the mountain passes up high in the mountains.
Right.
I just can't imagine the strength, not only of body but of mind, that
But
you
that
would
also
be able to survive that kind of thing.
But that also reminds me of the Canadians, if we want to use some parallel conversations. So during World War One, so the Canadians in the Rockies, because remember the Rockies in Canada, the Rockies are pretty crazy. It's similar to the Alps in some way.
Yeah.
So they were miners. They were trying to create passages like the Robbers Pass, all those stuff, like very industrial, very innovative, very. How do we get through this mountain? Because we can't keep climbing this because we want to get to the West Coast, East Coast. We're going to tie all that. So during World War One, those individuals that were very key in engineering, that type of mindset, very similar to what you're describing about the Italians trying to host up stuff, the like heavy equipment, heavy things on their backs, on ropes, trying to carry things through. The Canadians would go when they were fighting World War One. I don't know if you knew this, but the British felt like they were the superior military people, and that anything and as the empire, everybody was secondary. So the African campaign, people were kind of like the secondaries. So it was like they knew better how to fight. So when they were, I think it was near Belgium, where the Canadians fought, and eventually, as they were fighting back and forth between the Germans, they had a stalemate. And so, and when the campaigns were going to get worse, they would put their colonies up front because they didn't want to waste the best. But the Canadians said, "We're tired of going over the top. Let's find a different solution." So what they would do is they would dig underneath the hole, and they would dig and dig and dig and dig, and the Germans were like hearing this noise, and the first time that was happening, they didn't know. And so what happened was the Canadians would come in because this is their mindset. You got to remember where they came from. They came from the Rockies, and these people were trying to figure out how we don't want to die over. We don't want to jump over and die. That's stupid. So they would dig underneath, set a bunch of bombs and blow that whole front line of the Germans,
Yeah.
like destroy it. And then eventually, the cool part, eventually the English, the Brits were like, wow, that's pretty innovative. Because at first they were giving them a hard time. And then they said, well, okay, we're having a hard time breaking through this. So eventually the Canadians kept going through the mountains or kept digging and digging and digging. And now we're talking about maybe less than a half a mile. We're not talking about miles
No,
apart. It's a very short line of the no man land, and they would dig, and eventually the Germans would freak out because they knew what they were hearing was the Canadians coming after them and blowing the front line.
yeah.
And so, when you look about regions like that and people that overcome certain things, those skill sets that they've learned is remarkable because it's the will of the people. Like that whole, like I said, that whole region is very different from the rest of Italy.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Completely different. No, I'm not dismissing the southern part of
No,
Italy.
not at all. No,
No, I'm not doing that. Just for content, there's like over 500 different dialects in Italy,
exactly.
and that means 5 different types of rituals, 500 different types of the way they eat, the way they.
Yeah, it's all regional.
It's all regional, and from house to house, it could be very different from meal to meal.
Like just like in my village, the dialetto. You talk about dialect. They have Portuguese words.
Yeah.
A chair in my village's dialetto is carrega, which is the Portuguese word for chair.
Well, that's what I found out about my dad. Like my dad didn't really speak much of that time, and he didn't really speak. But he did say some things. He talked about we used to be dukes and all that, and we got ran out.
Counts.
Yeah, counts and whatever. We got ran out. We went to Spain and we hid out for a bit until, and this is like the early. I think it was I think it was the Napoleon War. I think
19th century for my family. Counts of Franzoia.
Right. So what happened was we came back to the region, reestablished, and we did what we needed to do.
Right.
But that whole, like, people think that, well, northern Italy is just an Italian. It's not, because that region is very transient also in some ways.
Yeah, it's also the frontier of a lot of places.
Right. And when you look at Switzerland and you look at Austria and you look at northern Italy, and even I would even say France, in that part right there, that chunk, people actually lived. They went back and forth. That's how the Romans went over. Is it the Romans that went over that mountain and conquer the Germans, like Germanic?
Well, Hannibal went down.
Well, Hannibal was the other one. Yeah,
from Tunisia through Spain all the way up through the Alps down into central Italy.
Yeah,
so, with elephants. So a North African went all the way around. So yeah, and it goes on the other side. Like Belluno, where my family's from, it has some of the oldest found Roman fortifications. So
wow.
The front line of the Roman Empire was around our region at one point.
I didn't know that. See, that's something I didn't know. Yeah. That's something I did not know. Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, they just going back to the anthropology. We were so my mom's from the southern part of Italy, okay. Right? And I knew there's African descent in that region. Well, in fact, then I was like researching the bloodline of Italians. Do you know that the Italian population is not really defined by Italy?
No,
it's defined by multiple regions.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that there's a mix of, like, if you go like Marocchinis, like Morocco, Egypt, Middle East, Libya, you have Greeks. I mean, you just name it. And then you have the northern part, the influence from France. Well, Germany really was the heaviest that came down and really influenced.
Yeah.
And
but
so
again, those places didn't actually exist, right?
Yeah.
Well, Germany wasn't really Germany. Nation states like that didn't really exist, right? So
No, not really. No.
it was Germanic. Yes, I mean the whole area, German Empire. It was Germanic. Then there was the Austrian Hungarians and all that. But in
The,
Sicily,
Ottoman
the
Empire.
Ottoman Empire, and in Sicily, I don't know if you know this, but traditionally the houses, the colors of the houses denoted your ancestry. Blue houses meant you were North African. Yellow
No, I
house,
didn't know that.
yellow houses meant you were Greek, et cetera, et cetera. I know.
Really?
I think it was green houses meant you were North African. Blue houses meant you were Greek. Yellow houses meant you were Norman. It's a very, very interesting mix. And when I don't know if you ever heard of Frederick II,
Hmm?
he was the king of Sicily. He was actually the emperor of the Holy Roman
Frederick?
the second, who wrote a
No,
book that's still published about falconry, and he wrote it originally in Arabic.
wasn't he Germanic or
He was
no?
Germanic. No, not only was he Germanic, he killed two popes. He beheaded two popes who had excommunicated him, and he spoke 7 languages, and he spoke Arabic, and he wrote a book about falconry because he fell in love with the art of falconry, and he wrote a book which is still published today in Arabic.
Wow.
So yeah, the history of the whole region is amazingly complex, and it's not as cut and dried as a lot of Eurocentric commentators want to make it, because they'll talk about the Roman Empire like it's the end of all things. No, everybody had influence. Everybody influenced each other in that part of the world at all times. If it wasn't the Persians, if it wasn't the Sumerians, if it wasn't the Persians, if it wasn't the Egyptians, everybody influenced each other. So it's really, really fascinating. And like you said, the South and the North, somehow they were able to create a country called what we call today modern Italy, but they're completely, completely different.
There was a bunch of kingdoms. There was several kingdoms. In fact, that still plays out in the northern part of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
They still have like these war games where I think it's in Veneto. I think it's in that region there, and they come in and it's a bloody fight. They
Oh yeah,
they
that's more in the, what's it called? Oh, the one place every American tourist goes in Italy.
not
Rather,
Milan,
no, that
Venice,
the whole region there with all those small towns and hills. Tuscany.
Tuscany.
It's a big thing in Tuscany. Like in Florence, they have this yearly
That's
fight.
Florence. Yeah.
They have this yearly fight between the neighborhoods that
Yeah.
all have colors, and there's a big horse race. And there's another sport that's in Rome that's more like a gladiator. It's a cross like bare knuckle fighting and rugby.
Okay. Well, wow.
Oh, yeah, it's really violent. Yeah, it's an amazing mix. But I think we're going away from.
No, but that's just part of our when we research, we kind of come across those things. And the tough part of researching is, and just for all intents and purposes, yes, we go into tangents and talk about these little things because we're interested in the history part of it. But we say those things because the story is not always as crystal as a straight line.
It's not linear all the time, though.
And it's all like you get these little facets down the road, and you kind of go, "Oh, that's kind of cool. That's great." And so, it brings, when we talk about those, you bring that region into more of, okay, now I'm kind of understanding it a little more better, how they think, why they think. It's the anthropology part of the world where we're trying to understand the culture. And that's what we're trying to do. We're understanding the culture, kind of give you guys a little bit of background on this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we kind of go in these little tangents because
it's fun.
we're history buffs.
Yeah.
And if you're a history buff, you kind of like it. If you like Second World War, First World War,
yeah,
you have to go back to the Roman Empire. And most of the things that people don't realize, we're heavily influenced by the Roman Empire every single day.
Yeah, we are.
No matter what. And every guy thinks about the Roman Empire every day. If you don't trust me, ask him how many times does he think about the Roman Empire.
I know.
I bet you anybody.
I know it's a thing. I know.
Yeah, it's a thing for us. So,
yeah. I'm the antithesis of that, by the way.
What's that?
I'm the anti-Roman thing. I always like to get into arguments with pro-Roman. I love to get. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Roman culture didn't come out of an egg or a clamshell. Okay, it was
No.
influenced by the Greeks, who were in their turn influenced by the Egyptians and the Persians, who in their turn were influenced by the Sumerians. It's a long chain of culture that we're all humans, and they're not one group is better than the other. That's the way I see the world in our culture. Is I really hate putting us. I think it's not good for our humanity to put ourselves in little groups that. Okay, the Roman Empire was so great. Yeah, it was. But the Greeks were a really great empire too. The Egyptians are a pretty cool empire too, and they were much older than the other empires before. But we never talk about them. But
Well, I can tell you how the Greeks influenced the Roman Empire. It's very simple. The military.
Yeah.
Like the columns were based on the Spartans, more or less.
Which were who were influenced by the Persians, who actually worked like that too. And then they met Alexander the Great, who was a Macedonian from the Balkans, who wasn't a Greek, because those concepts didn't exist. It's because the problem with history that we talk about a lot is that we put our 21st or 20th or 21st century view of the world on antiquity. Greeks didn't see themselves as Europeans; they saw themselves as Greeks.
Right. Yeah.
And the foes were not Europe or Africa, or it was Persians, because they were the biggest kids in the block.
Greek mythology came before most religion, which is true.
Yeah, and Persian. I mean,
you had Aristotle.
The Odyssey is basically the tale of Gilgamesh from Sumeria, with a little bit of sprinkling of other things, and yeah. But people tend to forget that because we like to put things in neat little boxes.
Right. So let's get back on track.
Yeah, let's get back on track. Sorry, everybody. History nerds. This. By the way, John, it's been over an hour. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Good. All right. We're gonna get close to the end here because I don't want to stay a little longer. But,
right.
So what's the next step in this whole process? You said we have to still contact people, go through there, but let's talk about the next podcast and what people can expect the next podcast.
I'm going to, for me personally, I'm going to expose what I see as a storyline.
Okay.
I'm going to introduce some characters.
Okay.
I'm going to finish reading this book to add some historical context, and then I'm going to present it to the world.
I do have. I'll be right back. I have a book that I am reading. Give me 1 second. So if you want to. I forgot about this book. So I'm actually reading this book, Our Dark Knight. That's the one, that lady.
Yeah, I
originally.
Yeah, I see.
And she talked about smuggling, but it comes from a female's perspective, which is fine. But it's more of a romance book.
Exactly, yeah.
But there is some content in there, and I'm looking for content. I'm looking for, is there a storyline? I did reach out to her, but I got nothing in return. So
I highly recommend this, John.
Yeah?
Yeah. And look at the back. Look at the bottom.
Oh.
It's mountains.
Yeah, mountains. Yeah.
So it's called A House in the Mountains, and it's dense because she's an historian. So it's not like a narrative fiction. It's more of a historiography, but it's really interesting. And It gave me a lot of ideas, like first of all, I'd like to know which group operated in the Veneto. There was the Garibaldi group, there's the Avanti group, there was a lot of groups, communists, and they're all together. They weren't really fighting each other. So that's interesting. I would really like to know what kind of groups. So I'm going to do as much research as I can. I'm going to send off some emails to those Italian associations, and I'm going to present you all with my first sketch of a narrative that I would like to follow in this story, and then we can talk about it, how we.
So one of the things I noticed is that you have one publication, I have one publication. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, do we create our own publication just based on this? And what I mean by that is, somehow now we do on Substack, I think we can do is create a publication where we both are tied to that. Do you know what I mean?
Like a third page?
like a third page. So when you post stuff, it sits on that page. When I post stuff, it sits on there, but we both get recognized on it.
Okay.
But we still are. I think our followers still. I gotta research that. That's the next step I want to do. I want to. So one of the things I want to do is streamline this a little deeper, rather than put it on our. Like it still show up in our timeline, but it'll be its own publication. Like for me, like I have Positive Pen, and then underneath there I have like 3 things, which includes the whole.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do is take that out and then create like a publication, and we can throw all those articles on there.
Okay.
Because it's still early enough to save this, make this adjustment.
Okay.
And then that way, when you post, it appears on my post, it appears on you. Because I want to make sure we are sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this video, then everything, all the archive sits on there, so it's easier for us to go back and.
Yeah, because I have another independent project I'm doing on my side about my time in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So I don't want to mix it with what we're doing.
Yeah.
So that would be perfect.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'm going to research that. I was looking at that before Christmas time, and what I'll do is I'll keep looking at that. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm a big YouTuber, so I'll start. I always go watch like World War II stuff and try to figure out stuff, trying to find and trying to pigeonhole that, like trying to find that region more and have a better understanding. Unfortunately, there's not a lot there. I am, and then we're also, I'm working with other people trying to get me more information, working with Andy. It's one of the things I want to do. The next podcast is bring Randy in.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Hopefully we can have a conversation and properly introduce him.
Yep.
And the next, hopefully down the road, we get more people to talk about their stories. We're interviewing them so we can catalog it and go from there.
I'm not making any promises, but one of my friends is the head of podcasts for CBC.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to contact him. I haven't talked to him in a while, so I'm going to try to contact him and see if there's anything we can do. Obviously, he's on the French side, but there is an English podcast section also. So I'll see what we can do, and if there's any kind of interest or things that we can get more people interested. And eventually, my goal is to go over there.
Well, yeah, I would like to go too.
Yeah, you're invited, John, because I'm going to renovate my little caseta over there.
Casa.
You and your family are invited. There's 2 bedrooms. I'm sure we can share. There's only one bed and breakfast in the village, so we'll have to share.
Well, I might insult my family if I don't stay with them, just FYI.
Absolutely, but we're half an hour from each other, right?
Yeah.
It's not
but the idea is to go. We want to do a visit. We want to catalog it. We want to vlog about it. We kind of want to do all that when we go there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got a constraints here a little bit. But the other thing we're also doing in this project is look for funding, and so we're asking for grant. We're looking for grant writers is another one, because I think there is some type of money out there to do family historical history content, things like that.
Yep.
There might be the Jewish community that wants more of that information out. They might be interested in funding. And some of the big backers, and one of the reasons the Italian culture is involved, there's big families from my region. I'm sure they would love to have that out as well, because it shines a light on their world. Hopefully,
so I think it's important that we give them material that we can show them of what.
Hopefully they're not fascists and that they're on the right side of the history.
And I hope they're not anti-communist, because that's part of my family.
Yeah. Well, but by the way, I'm not communist. Okay,
I'm a socialist. Okay.
Here we go. You have your political views. I have mine.
Right.
I'm more centralist. I'm a centralist person. I don't like party. I don't like identity politics.
No, me neither.
But we don't talk about, that's not about the world, but we do talk about politics because it affects the storyline.
Exactly.
And this is the other part of writing and getting along. Just because you have personal belief, you can't harm the story with your personal belief. You have to be neutral in this conversation, because if you, I don't get me wrong, people do influence the story because you do have beliefs, but the more pure you are, the more authentic you are about the story, preserving the story, and kind of like just let it be the way it is, rather than put an opinion. That's really where a good storyline becomes, and a good writer starts, because now a writer is not focused on express an opinion. He wants to tell the truth, the authentic truth, the raw and the honesty of people. And the more we use their stories, the more authentic it becomes in the world of what we're trying to create.
The way I see it is that if you use an authentic voice and don't censor yourself of the reality of the history and not try to couch it in anything, people will make their own minds and see if, okay, yeah, I understand this group of people, how they thought because of this, or this group of people. And our job is not to make any judgment, it's just to tell a story.
Right.
And the people will make their own judgment about our story and the people that inhabit our story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm not a publicist or anything. I'm not pushing for my political views. I just believe that everybody, if you live in society, everybody should have a go at it. And I don't believe in inequality between people. That's my whole socialism. That's all, right?
Yeah.
I'm not an ardent, on the street with a red bandana around my head.
Yeah, you are. Just tell the truth.
Yeah, I just believe everybody should have a fair shake at everything, and
Yeah.
that's it.
No, but I just want to make sure the writers out there that are following is to understand the more pure you are, and distance yourself from what you've learned. That's okay. That the best way to do that is what we're doing is you, like, for example, when I travel, I kind of like parachute in like an anthropologist, and I go, help me understand.
Yeah, me too.
And that's it. And I don't have any like, I'll try new food, I'll try new drinks, I'll do this. Oh, you want to go do that? Let's go do that. So reality is it's not as you're open minded and you're allowing things to happen. Now, obviously, there's certain constraints with that philosophy, but the idea is basically you're parachuting it. We're going to be parachuting in this region, and we're going to dissect it. We're going to actually do the proper word of investigating. Well, you might do investigating journalism. I may do investigating the history of the area, and hopefully we get something out of it. That's really the whole idea when you come down to writing.
That is my plan completely, also.
Yeah. So when you're writing, when we're writing, that's our goal. So we kind of like talked about how the start of this, how we got here. We talked about the progression of our research and things like the struggles, and they're still there. I'm going to start doing some more Facebook posting, trying to see if I can get more people interested, get more messaging going. The other thing is, when we write, we're going to put two in different languages, I guess, English, Italian, and French.
I guess we could, yeah.
And then hopefully that captures a good chunk of the audience that we're trying to target. And then hopefully through there, we will have a message, always, if you have any information about this, please reach out. That's really what we're going to be. That's right. The idea.
On my side, I'm going to write to these Italian associations of partisans. Yeah. And I would like to know which groups operated in the region, their names, if it's possible, how many people were involved, if they know the routes that were taken, the geographical routes that were taken to go, and in what area they operated.
Right.
So I got 3 questions based with those answers. Then I think we can elaborate other questions together that we would like to know.
Right.
Like, was there any conflicts between groups, et cetera, et cetera? But that's in the future. I'm going to try first to get that kind of information out, and see if they receive it. We are dealing with Italians, so it's not going to be. Oh, it might be. I mean, let's not put people in little boxes, like I said. And we'll see. We'll go from there. And like I said, I'm going to present you guys with the way I see the story being built up from beginning, middle, and end. I'm old-fashioned like that. I like stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But we can talk about it. I mean, you might not agree, but let's I'll give you a short synopsis. My elevator pitch.
So, okay, so just for the podcast part,
Mm-hmm.
our goal is to do podcasts, but it's not going to be it's going to be periodically. It's not going to be every single week. It's not
No.
going to be like that. It's going to be, we don't want to present you information that doesn't not have real contents. Like we want to make sure when there's like if there's a guest, we want to bring them on. I don't know if it's going to be every Saturday. I don't know if it's going to be on a Sunday. I don't know if it's going to be on Monday night, or I don't know. But the idea is to have this as our depository of our information and share,
Mm-hmm.
so you can learn. So the next podcast, we're not 100% sure yet, but the idea is we want to do more of these as we go. So it might be once a month, it might be every 2 weeks. Don't know. So stay alert. We're going to create a new publication. So once that happens, we'll send it out to everybody to follow that's interested in following it. And that's all I have. Anything else?
Just picture my page. You can read my prologue of my idea of the whole, part 1 and part 2 on my Substack page. I don't know if we should talk about this right now, but intellectual property, because I'd like to keep our story our story.
Yeah.
So we'll have to find a way to protect ourselves, I guess, our research and all that.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not going to share everything.
Right.
But we're going to share as much as we can to keep everybody understand. But the reason why we're not going to share everything is because, we want to keep things in suspense. Is the idea? This is just a catalog of things, but when we start, the goal is to create a book. That's one, and create some type of documentary, and then hopefully that documentary gets picked up or whatever. But we need funding. That's the other thing, to create those things. Need publishers that are interested in picking this book up. I don't know if we want to do self-publishing, because that's kind of, I don't know if that's the way we want to do that. But I mean, we got to explore all options. But the idea is to do this in a way that keeps everybody coming along. And once the book happens, it's going to be like the meats and potatoes of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be very similar how I do my Substack now, where I do post stuff on my Substack. It's just a very rough draft, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like me.
Yeah. So, but the publication part of this is on Substack. It's going to be very broad versus the details.
Yeah,
I guess
we can actually even think about talking about a serialized version of this story.
Yeah, on Substack. Yeah, we could do that, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is to be.
I mean, we did it with the Count of Monte Cristo. I don't see why we can't do it with our story.
Okay.
We did it with Dickens. I don't see why we can't do it with our story. Right, go big or go home, man.
Well, this is a new way of writing, I think, in
so,
today's world. Where, I mean, if you think about it, readers want to know the backstories of how we got here.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really important part of the process where people get to understand it. So when they read the book, they go, wow, the way they brought it all together in a book, or they critique it to the point where it's like, you guys missed the whole storyline here.
Exactly.
Whatever the case may be, that's fine. But that's the concept of it. So that's where we're trying to go in those directions.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways, we appreciate everybody on here.
Thank you all.
There's there's Amy, Candace, Miss Hughes, Gail, Sarah, everybody, Glenda. There's all these people on here. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it, people. Everybody, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. And so this podcast will be on multiple platforms. It's going to be on Substack, obviously, YouTube, TikTok, X, and a couple other places. So we're going to try to get more stories out there, and we'll share stories of what we discover. I think that's really what we're going to do more on these podcasts.
I think so. Yeah. The process. I think I
Yeah.
think people will be interested in seeing our process, how we're working on this.
Yeah.
And
Especially in two countries, dealing with multiple countries.
In multiple languages.
Multiple languages, trying to figure this out. And I'm excited about that because that's kind of cool.
It is. It is very cool.
It's like an anthropologist from over the internet.
History, journalism, and anthropology all mixed into one.
Well, all through
a little pinch of narrative.
Yeah. We'll throw some literature in there, but no, it's like that's exactly what we're doing. It's kind of cool. We're doing this from afar, trying to hone down, and then get to that point where we're going to go there now because we've done so much research, and we need to understand it. And also, this podcast we're going to try to share. I'm going to try utilize this where I'm going to be sharing pictures, sharing the region, talk to you about what we're trying to do. We kind of like figured out where the map of the mule run was, talk about the Mirage line of the Germans and Allies, and kind of give you more of the land. Right now, this was just the first one. I got to learn how to use that stuff, so that's more my
It's going to be a very interesting. So we're both going to be learning all kinds of stuff that not expert at, but we're going to figure out because we can, and we have the platform to do it, and the people who are encouraging us, and I think it's going to be a very interesting journey.
Yes. All right, Hassan. Hey, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you, and we look forward to the next episode. We look for the next stories. Look them out, and we'll keep you guys in touch. Thank you for joining.
Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.